Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, dwyervip.com. On Roku, Dwyer Boxing and Sports News. Also, vanity code Dwyer Sports Betting for other gamblers talking about sports. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Now, in 2006 and 2007, on CNBC, a cable news station that was viewed as the authoritative source on financial news, right? They would have a lot of people from a lot of investment banks and hedge funds on that show talking about economics and investing in the future of the economy. There was a guy back then. He was then in his early 40s. He's still around. Peter Schiff, right? A guy out of Berkeley. And on that show, they would talk about the economy, and at the time, the economy was booming, right? Alan Greenspan, the Fed chairman, had low interest rates going on. You had a record percentage of home owners, right? High home ownership. Everything looked hunky-dory. And at that time, Peter Schiff would come on the show, and he would talk about debt burdens on panels with 3 or 4 other financial experts, right? And there should always be quotes around the word expert, right? Peter Schiff would talk about loans made to subprime borrowers. He actually used words like housing bubble, right? While everyone else was talking about, sophisticated metrics. Peter Schiff, who was really the outcast on the show, he was the loon. He was there really for entertainment purposes. Peter Schiff would talk about crazy concepts like supply and demand, right? Now, he would routinely get criticized on the show. It typically would be everyone else on the panel saying, well, Peter Schiff's view is the extremist view, right? That's the view from the bleachers. Right? Typically, people would say, you don't know what you're talking about, right? Because everything was hunky-dory in the United States, right? Peter Schiff was viewed as crazy. Then, of course, we had the subprime housing bubble. The housing market went off the rails. Everything got thrown into flux. America, for the first time in its history, left political orthodoxy and actually elected a non-white male for the United States president, right? Understand how exclusive the presidency has been. We haven't even had a Jewish president. We've never had a female president, right? The subprime housing bubble was so devastating in 2008 that the country did something it had never done in its history in search for a solution. Now, let me just give a nod right here. This is a sports video, not a talk on economics, but let me just say, sometimes the world is upside down. Now, if you're looking for good guidance on economics, I encourage you to look at the work of Max Kaiser here on YouTube, Greg Hunter, Pippa Malgren, David Stockman, Gerald Salenti, and Nomi Prince and Alex Jones, among others, right? I have links to some of their work at keepingitfree.blogspot.com. But just consider the possibility, as it was in 2006 and 2007, when Peter Schiff was viewed as a loon, right, for talking about a housing bubble. Just consider the possibility that the world is upside right now. That 80% of what you're hearing right now might not reflect reality, right? The idea that as we debate in the NBA whether or not James Harden or Steph Curry is the NBA MVP, that a guy who's out of the running, right, a guy who, unlike these two, didn't play on a team that made the playoffs last year, right? Is on a different team, right? That didn't make the playoffs, that was in the lottery, and that had the first lottery pick last year. Just think about the possibility that LeBron James, who isn't being mentioned as MVP, might be the player who means the most to his team, the Cleveland Cavaliers, right? Well, let me just say, conventional wisdom might be neither. Now let's talk about Manny Pacquiao versus Floyd Mayweather, right? Let me just say this. I know you've heard a lot of things. I was recently at a barbecue and someone came up to me and started talking about boxing. Other people were around, and I couldn't believe some of the stuff I was hearing, right? Understand, I know that the conventional wisdom is that Manny Pacquiao is the guy who, has the best chance at getting a knockout in the fight. Isn't that what your casino's telling you? Aren't those the odds posted right now, right? You're getting shorter odds on Manny Pacquiao by KO than you are Floyd Mayweather by KO. I'm just here to tell you that if you take a step back and look at the big picture, in my opinion, and it's one man's opinion, right? The fighter at the greatest risk of being knocked out in this fight is Manny Pacquiao. Let's make the case. Understand, Manny Pacquiao 4 fights ago was knocked out. He was recently knocked out. Understand, Manny Pacquiao was knocked out before. Right? Manny Pacquiao's actually been knocked out 3 times in his career. Right? Singh Sharat and Torrecampo knocked him out before Juan Manuel Marquez did. Right? That Marquez fight, again, it's 4 fights ago, had Pacquiao hitting the canvas twice in that fight. Twice. Now, as you can imagine, Floyd Mayweather, who's unbeaten, has never been knocked out professionally. Let's underline the word, never. Right? Understand, too, in terms of punching power, and we'll get into this a little bit deeper, but Manny Pacquiao, who does, have a punch, there's no question about it. Manny Pacquiao has a 59% knockout ratio. Floyd Mayweather has a 55% knockout ratio. Right? You understand that statistically, these guys have very close knockout ratios. You also understand that if you go through the resumes of the fighters and you look at who they fought and the weights at which they fought them, Oscar fought some guys at much higher weights than Manny Pacquiao. In other words, Mayweather's 55% KO ratio involves fights against people like Oscar De La Hoya when Oscar De La Hoya came in the ring weighing a lot more than 154 pounds. Right? There was no clause in the contract that limited the weight at which Oscar could proceed in that fight. Right? The fight was for Oscar's 154 title. Oscar was able to do what countless fighters do, what Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. does. Right? Make 154 for the weigh-in, then come in on fight night weighing a hell of a lot more than that. Understand, Floyd Mayweather fought Marcus Maidana. We know Maidana was in the 160s for those fights. Right? Maidana came in weighing much more than Floyd. Right? Much more. Manny Pacquiao hasn't had a fight against an opponent who weighed as much as, let's say, Marcus Maidana weighed in his recent fights against Floyd Mayweather. Right? Think about it. Right? Manny's been fighting smaller guys than Floyd Mayweather. Yet their KO percentage is within 5 percentage points of each other. Let me also point out, too, that Floyd Mayweather, even his critics will concede, he's brilliant defensively. Whatever his critics think about his defense, right? You don't even have to listen to his critics. You don't even have to listen to his supporters. Let's just look at the math. If you look at the CompuBox numbers, Floyd Mayweather's defense is simply spectacular. Understand, high-volume guys become low-volume guys against Floyd Mayweather. Understand, high-volume guys become low-accuracy guys against Floyd Mayweather, according to CompuBox numbers. Manny Pacquiao, by contrast, is not defensively blessed. He's not. Right? He comes in unbalanced. He's open for counters. Let's talk about that punching power for a moment. Right? Let's talk about the fact that even though Manny gets shorter odds for a KO here, that Pacquiao hasn't knocked out anyone since 2009. Think about that. Folks, it's 2015. We're hearing about Pacquiao's power against one of the dominant defensive fighters in the sport. Just understand that against lesser competition, guys who don't have Mayweather's defense, right? For example, Pacquiao fought Brandon Rios. Is there anyone watching this video who believes Brandon Rios' defense is better than Floyd Mayweather's? Just understand that Manny Pacquiao has not knocked out anyone since 2009. By the way, in some videos I've erroneously said that the last person he knocked out was Ricky Hatton. It's actually the fight right after that. The last person he stopped was Miguel Cotto. I want you to revisit that Cotto fight. Cotto's beaten up in the bout. There's no question about that. Right? But, in my opinion, that fight shouldn't have been stopped. Cotto was on his way to going the distance. That fight, by the way, Pacquiao's last knockout, happened in the 12th round against Miguel Cotto, who had gone down much earlier in the fight. Now let's talk about further folklore. Pacquiao's had a series of fights where he knocks down guys. Shane Mosley, right? Cotto. But yet he's unable to finish the guy, right? Or he's dominating a guy, Margarito. But yet he's unable to finish the guy. Now you've been hearing spin, right? This is spin that would make even James Carville blush. That Manny Pacquiao had sympathy. He had compassion for these guys. And that he carried these guys. Right? That he didn't have the killer instinct. Right? To finish off these guys. That's one interpretation. Another could be that Manny couldn't finish off these guys. That there's some part of Manny's game that allowed even a guy like Shane Mosley, who feels that he's never been hit that hard in his boxing career, to get off the canvas against Manny Pacquiao and be able to go the distance. Right? Maybe Pacquiao doesn't have as many tools in his kit as you think. Maybe you can get hit with the left hand, get off the canvas and say, okay, I need to look for that punch. And maybe there aren't enough other punches that would allow Pacquiao to end the show early. So just understand that the fighter at greatest risk in this fight of being KO'd, in my opinion, is Manny Pacquiao. Right? I'm not sure what data points other people are using to reach a different conclusion. right? He fights Timothy Bradley twice. Bradley's injured both times, right? First fight, he hurts his ankles. Second fight, he hurts his calf, right? Timothy Bradley goes the distance both times with Manny Pacquiao. Think about it. Wasn't this the same Timothy Bradley who was on the canvas against Ruslan Provodnikov, right? Was it Bradley's chin that's so magical? If Bradley's chin is so magical, why has he been down in other fights? I'm a Timothy Bradley fan. He was almost decapitated by Kendall Holt, right? He wasn't down against Pacquiao over 24 rounds. Let's talk about the common opponent folklore, because it's folklore. Several Pacquiao people have come up to me and they've said, look, compare and contrast. Oscar De La Hoya goes the distance with Floyd Mayweather, wins the fight on one of the judges' scorecards. Manny Pacquiao destroys Oscar De La Hoya, right? Let me make the argument that the De La Hoya who fought Floyd Mayweather would beat the De La Hoya who fought Manny Pacquiao, right? The De La Hoya who fought Floyd Mayweather, as I've mentioned, had no weight restriction, right? The fights at 154, Oscar was able to come in, weigh 154 at the weigh-in. He was able to outweigh Mayweather, who weighed 150 or 151. I'm not kidding. He was able to outweigh Mayweather by more than that on fight night. Now, did you know that when Oscar fights Manny Pacquiao, when they enter the ring, Manny weighs more than Oscar? Did you know that Oscar didn't fight Manny at 154? He fought Manny at, I believe it's 147. Double check me on that. Right? Just understand, though, that Oscar, who's older when he fights Manny, comes in lighter than Manny for that fight. If you want a recipe for disaster, I even included this in the book I wrote years ago on betting on boxing. Look at these older fighters who try to drop down a weight class. They're vulnerable. The Oscar who fights Manny was more vulnerable than the Oscar who fought Floyd Mayweather. Let's talk about Ricky Hatton. Here again, we know Ricky Hatton gains a lot of weight. By the way, that book is available on Amazon, shameless plug. Well, anyway, we know Ricky Hatton gains a lot of weight between fights, right? We know his lifestyle had him living life between fights, right? Let me let you in on a secret in boxing. Sometimes weight's the deciding factor, right? I'm telling you that Roberto Duran beats Ray Leonard. Then Roberto Duran immediately hits the buffet table, immediately starts gaining weight. I'm not talking about 2-3 pounds, folks. I'm talking about 20-25 pounds. Ray Leonard's advisor, I believe his name was Mike Trainer, finds out that Duran has put on like 20 pounds following the Ray Leonard fight. Talks with, financial backers. Then makes Duran an offer with the proviso that he has to fight Ray Leonard in a few months, right? Understand, both fights, both Ray Leonard-Duran fights happen within months of each other. So Duran, of course, had to spend most of his time losing weight to make weight, right? He's a shell of himself. Could you lose 20 pounds in, let's say, 90 days? Could you? And then, after you lose the weight, be able to fight a Ray Leonard in his prime? Right now, according to rumor, that's what's going on with the James Kirkland, Saul Alvarez situation, right? That's why you need to proceed with caution there. They're claiming that when they approached Kirkland, Kirkland weighed much more than the contracted weight for the fight. Right? So Kirkland might be weight drained. Wasn't Ricky Hatton, who fought Manny Pacquiao at 140, weight drained? Let me say this. Right? Understand the Ricky Hatton, who again had no weight restriction. Right? All he had to do was weigh 147 at the weigh-in. Then he was able to balloon up. Right? The Ricky Hatton who fights Floyd Mayweather, isn't he better than the Ricky Hatton who later fights Manny Pacquiao at 140? Right? Who's the better Ricky Hatton? I understand Ricky Hatton had a good run at 140. But understand, the horse was out the bar. He had gained weight. Right? Once you gain the weight, it's hard to lose the weight back. Just look at Roy Jones's career. Right? Gains weight from light heavy to fight for the heavyweight championship. Is never the same after he tries to lose weight. Right? The first Antonio Tarver fights right after Roy Jones has lost the weight to go from heavyweight back down to light heavy. He's never the same. Right? If you look at the common opponents that these guys have fought, right? If you look at Oscar and if you look at Ricky Hatton closely, you're going to find out that Mayweather is fighting them at higher weights than Manny Pacquiao. Right? The fact that Pacquiao knocks out Ricky Hatton, you need to think about the fact that Ricky Hatton was unbeaten and gets knocked out for the first time in the Mayweather fight. Right? So, you're not dealing with the same aura of invincibility in the later Pacquiao-Hatton fight that you are in the earlier Mayweather-Hatton fight. Also, if Floyd Mayweather fought the version of Ricky Hatton that fought Manny Pacquiao, if he fought a 140-pound version of Ricky Hatton, don't you think that knockout would have happened earlier? Let's talk about another common opponent they've had. By the way, Ricky Hatton, who believes anything can happen in this fight, is taking Floyd Mayweather. Right? Oscar De La Hoya, let me just say this. Has there been a bigger hater, a bigger critic of Floyd Mayweather than Oscar De La Hoya? Right? I understand that Oscar likes Manny in this fight. Okay, fair enough. Understand Oscar has liked Floyd's opponents going back several fights. Hasn't he? Right? One of the claims that was made in the Oscar-Richard Schaefer legal situation was that Richard Schaefer was too friendly with Al Haymon fighters and Al Haymon. Right? Understand, Floyd Mayweather is an Al Haymon fighter. You have to figure out whether or not these guys are talking boxing or have some other agenda when they give a forecast for a fight. For example, Miguel Cotto, who fought both men, thinks Manny has a serious chance in this fight. Understand, Miguel Cotto's trainer is Manny Pacquiao's trainer, Freddie Roach. Right? What's better for Miguel Cotto? Right? Criticizing a Freddie Roach fighter? Or saying, hey, my trainer is a great trainer. One of his other superstar clients has a chance with Freddie in his corner. Let me talk about another guy who fought both. Juan Manuel Marquez. Right? Now, longtime viewers here know my view on Marquez. I don't believe he lost the fight to Manny Pacquiao. Right? On the Dwyer scorecard, Marquez is 4-0 against Manny Pacquiao. Now, I understand that's a minority view. Okay. Understand, Marquez is clear. He believes Floyd Mayweather beats Manny Pacquiao. If there's one person on this planet other than Marquez's trainer, Nacho Beristain, who knows how Manny Pacquiao is in the ring, I would say it's one Manuel Marquez, who fought him 4 times. Right? In my opinion, the key in that last fight is the fact that when Manny Pacquiao gets knocked out, that's the 2nd time he's been on the canvas in the fight. If you're wondering where Manny Pacquiao is in his career, right, you need to ask yourself why the first time he gets dropped in a fight against Marquez comes in that 4th fight. Right? Think about it. So, this video is running a little long. Let me speed it up. So, everything about this fight is upside down. I've listened to Skip Bayless on ESPN. I have the utmost respect for Skip Bayless. I consider Skip Bayless to be a go-to guy in terms of opinions on a lot of sporting events. He's one of the few guys who I'll literally think to myself, what is Skip Bayless thinking about this event right before I place action on it? Well, let me just say this. I understand Skip Bayless feels Manny Pacquiao is the man in this fight, right? And I understand that Skip Bayless feels that Floyd Mayweather has avoided Manny Pacquiao for years. Isn't this folklore? Isn't Skip Bayless ignoring a few facts here? Think about it. The guy who agreed to a 50-50 split on the fight, right? 50-50 split on the fight with drug testing is supposed to have wanted to avoid it. Right? The guy who offered the other guy $40 million to fight him is the guy who's supposed to have not wanted it. Right? The guy who doesn't need the money. Right? Who wasn't pursued by tax authorities in the Philippines for back taxes. Right? The guy who, just in his garage alone has millions of dollars of unfinanced automobiles, right? Floyd Mayweather, from what I'm hearing, has very little debt. He buys things on cash, right? That guy, the guy who doesn't need the money, but who's taking the fight, is the guy who's supposed to have wanted to avoid it. Let me point out, too, the last few years, could either fighter have taken this fight? Manny Pacquiao lost to Timothy Bradley in 2012. After that loss, Pacquiao wasn't in a position to take the fight, was he? Right? Timing is critical here. Once Pacquiao lost to Bradley, the really big money wasn't in this fight, was it? Then Pacquiao went out there and got knocked out by Marquez. Right? Understand, Pacquiao has only recently put himself in a position after facing Bradley a 2nd time and after beating Chris Algieri. Right? And by the way, let's be clear on the Chris Algieri fight. Right? That fight was fought at 143.5 pounds. Understand, Chris Algieri is 3.5 pounds less than where Floyd's going to be for this fight. Right? Think about it. Right? It's only recently that Pacquiao has redeemed himself to make this fight a superstar fight again. Right? He had to come back from 2 recent losses. 2. Right? Including one in which he was knocked out. Keep in mind, too, that Pacquiao took off for almost a year after he got knocked out by Juan Manuel Marquez. So if Floyd's ducking Manny Pacquiao, or was ducking Manny Pacquiao, when exactly is that supposed to have happened? After Floyd agreed to a 50-50 split with drug testing? Was he supposed to be ducking Pacquiao when he offers Pacquiao $40 million for the fight? Right? Was he supposed to be ducking Pacquiao after Pacquiao lost to Bradley, then got knocked out by Marquez? Come on. Right? The Skip Bayless narrative really is a non-narrative. Hopefully it's generating viewers for his show on ESPN, but it's not as factual as it could be. So, 30 minutes in, let's talk about how to beat Manny Pacquiao. Right? The first thing. Now, understand, reality is upside down right now. Right? In my opinion, rather than run from the pocket, right? Freddie Roach is saying Floyd needs to make sure that his legs are ready to move for 12 rounds. Isn't the opposite true? To beat Manny Pacquiao, don't you want to stay in the pocket? Right? I mean, in fact, you not only want to stay in the pocket, you want to create new pockets. You want to be in the pocket, you want to move a bit, to have Pacquiao follow you around the ring like a puppy. Right? The Marquez fight. The Bradley fight. The first Bradley fight, Bradley gets hurt. So Bradley starts pumping a jab. Folks, Bradley can't move in that fight. He's right in front of Manny Pacquiao. Whoever you thought won that fight, can we agree Timothy Bradley goes 12 rounds in that fight? Can we agree Bradley ends that fight strongly? Right? Floyd doesn't need to run. He doesn't need to move that much. His opponent here is not Robert Guerrero. The pocket isn't that dangerous against Manny Pacquiao. In fact, quite frankly, Mayweather has the advantage in the pocket. It's going to be Pacquiao who needs to leave the pocket. Because think of the tools they have. In the pocket, Mayweather has a pretty good jab. Mayweather has an excellent left hook. Mayweather has a great straight right hand. Mayweather's timing is so impeccable, he can actually dip down and hit you in the stomach with that right hand and know that you are not in position to hit him in the head. Right? Keep in mind, if I'm bending down and throwing a punch like this, I'm exposed. Even against a puncher like Canelo. Even against a puncher like Marcus Maidana. And can we agree that both Canelo and Marcus Maidana hit harder than Manny Pacquiao? Just look at their weights. Right? Against bigger punchers than Manny Pacquiao. Mayweather stayed in the pocket. Right? Manny Pacquiao is the one who has to leave the pocket because up close, that's when you'll realize Manny only has that long left hand. Floyd doesn't have to leave the pocket. Floyd can stay in the pocket. I would say that's his best move. In fact, I would stay in the pocket, then I'd try to create a new pocket. I'd try to take a step back. Why? Because I want Manny to reset and then to re-lunge in. That'll give me counterpunching opportunities. Another way to beat Manny Pacquiao is to use your jab. Manny's hardwired, isn't he? Right? He doesn't make quick adjustments. Didn't Timothy Bradley use his jab to great success against Manny Pacquiao? Why do I have to change that blueprint? Right? I know it works. So if I'm Floyd, I want to use the jab. Because it's going to throw off Manny Pacquiao's timing. Right? You don't want to move, out of the pocket. You don't want to have a mobile fight like Floyd had against Robert Guerrero, right? Understand the Ghost throws a lot of punches in the pocket. You saw that in the Carmagate fight. That's a pocket fight. The guys are in the pocket throwing a lot of leather. Right? Manny Pacquiao's not that level of fighter in the pocket. I know Pacquiao people are cringing. Hey, let's just spit truth here. He's not that level of fighter in the pocket that Robert the Ghost Guerrero is. So Floyd can be in the pocket. Floyd could even throw a jab in the pocket. Right? Understand, Floyd's jab lines up with Manny's right hand. Right? Not his left. Right? Manny's left lines up with Floyd's right hand. Floyd's left jab lines up with Manny's right hand. In other words, Floyd can throw a jab, can leave himself a little exposed here. Manny doesn't have the right hand to exploit that. So to beat Manny Pacquiao, if you're a crisp counterpuncher like Floyd Mayweather, you want to be in the pocket. You want to be throwing a jab, right? Let me say this too. Shane Mosley made a mistake, didn't he? Shane Mosley got hit with a bomb and went down against Manny Pacquiao. Then he gets up, then he spends the rest of the fight moving away, backing away from Manny Pacquiao. Isn't that what Shane Mosley did? We know that doesn't work. Why would you try to back away from Manny Pacquiao? Isn't a better strategy to stay close to Manny Pacquiao? You didn't see Juan Manuel Marquez moving like Shane Mosley moved. He didn't have to. He knew up close he could outbox Manny Pacquiao. Let's talk about Pacquiao's left hand too for a moment. Right? Understand, Floyd doesn't want to avoid the left hand. The opposite is true. He wants to see the left hand. In other words, one of the things you have to do with Manny Pacquiao is draw out that left hand. Figure out the angles. Know that he throws that left hand predominantly up top, so you know he's going to throw it at your head. So have a hand up. Protect your chin, right? Have a hand up, right? As Pacquiao throws that left, look at the angle. It's an odd angle. It's straighter than most people expect it to be, right? Let's remember, in the rematch against Marquez, he drops Marquez on a straight left hand, right? Marquez is able to get off the canvas, but Marquez has his hand too wide. Pacquiao slips the left in. Figure out the angle. Once you figure out the angle of Manny Pacquiao's straight left, then you can counter it, right? Figure out the angle. Floyd early wants to force Manny to throw left hands. This isn't the kind of fight where you're so nervous of, let's say, a guy's punch, right? Think Nonito Donaire, right? Nonito Donaire has a great left hook, and there have been fights. He fought a guy, I want to say Takahiro or some name like that. He fought a guy who had a hand up the whole fight, trying to protect himself against Nonito Donaire's left hook, right? This isn't that kind of fight, right? Because understand, when Manny Pacquiao comes in, he's off balance after throwing that left hand. You want to see it because he's so off balance. You have countering opportunities, right? Chris Algieri got caught with the left hand early, right? Never recovered. What Mayweather wants to do is to have Manny throw the left hand early. But he wants to be more prepared than Chris Algieri. He wants to realize that the left hand is going to come in unexpectedly. So he needs to start the fight more defensive than offensive. He needs to see the left hand, figure out the angle. The sooner, the better. So when you're fighting Manny Pacquiao, you don't want to avoid left hands. You want to draw them out early so you can figure out the angle. Another thing in fighting Manny Pacquiao is you need to ignore a lot of the feints. If he's far enough away from you, what do you care if he's feinting about throwing a right hand? He doesn't have a right hand to throw. Let's just get real here. He doesn't have a right hand to throw. If Pacquiao's bouncing around doing a lot of feints and stuff, you know he's bouncing around trying to set up a straight left. Focus on that. It'll slow down the fight. It'll slow down his hand speed. right? You look at the Oscar De La Hoya fight, and Oscar's reading feints, and Oscar looks paralyzed, right? He's up on the ropes, he's paralyzed. Compare and contrast Oscar to Juan Manuel Marquez. Marquez is a calm customer, especially in the fight in Texas, the third fight. Marquez is standing in front of Manny Pacquiao. He's not flinching every time Manny Pacquiao feints. He's just looking at Pacquiao's left, isn't he? Right? The fight's not too fast for Juan Manuel Marquez. He has Pacquiao coming in trying to throw that left because Marquez has figured out you want Pacquiao throwing that left. Think about how Pacquiao gets knocked out. He's coming in trying to throw that left. Marquez times it. Pacquiao throwing a left is an opportunity for a counterpuncher. Right? That's one of the reasons why you don't want to be moving too much. You don't want to fight this like Ali fought Liston. You're not up against the Sonny Liston. Guy with the great jab where you couldn't stand in the pocket with Sonny Liston. That's a fight where a guy needed to avoid the pocket. Right? Because Liston had a great jab. Pacquiao doesn't have a great jab. You know, that's the other thing too. Pacquiao's right hand jab, do you really need to pay attention to that? It's not going to bust you up. Right? So, conventional wisdom would have it that Pacquiao has too much power and that Floyd needs to be prepared to move for 12 rounds. I believe the truth is the exact opposite. Pacquiao's a guy who hasn't knocked out anyone since 2009. Floyd Mayweather, against bigger competition, has almost the same KO ratio as Manny Pacquiao. In the pocket, Floyd has far more tools than Manny Pacquiao. It's a mismatch in the pocket, right? What Floyd needs to do is to figure out the angle on Manny Pacquiao's left. He needs to forget about all the other feints. He needs to figure out the angle on Manny Pacquiao's left up top. Right? And then, once he figures out that angle, he needs to start with some hardcore counterpunching. Right? Let me point out, too, he needs to walk Pacquiao into traps. You saw one against Juan Manuel Marquez, where Pacquiao lunges in, Marquez hits him with the right hand. There are others. Right? Pacquiao's wide open for a check left hook. I know he's a southpaw. I know the angle looks a little bit different. Pacquiao's wide open for a check left hook. I don't see Pacquiao coming in like this, throwing a punch while protecting himself that often. Right? So, right? Let's just throw conventional wisdom on its head. Right? In my opinion, the fighter at the greatest risk of being KO'd here is Manny Pacquiao. In my opinion, Floyd wants to stay in the pocket. He doesn't want to run. He doesn't want to move as much. He shouldn't move as much as he did against Robert the Ghost Guerrero. Right? In my opinion, Floyd has known that he wins this fight for years. He wanted this fight. Right? Forget conventional wisdom that, oh, Floyd's avoiding. No, that's promoter PR spin. Floyd wanted that fight. That's why an unbeaten fighter was willing to accept only 50% against the guy who's been KO'd multiple times. Back then, Manny had been KO'd twice. Right? Understand, Pacquiao's lost other fights. The first Derek Morales fight. Right? He had lost it back then when they were negotiating for this fight the first time. Right? All that's happened recently is Manny's gone out and lost to Timothy Bradley, then got knocked out by Juan Manuel Marquez after getting booed after getting the decision in the third Marquez fight. That's all that's happened. So what you've heard might be as relevant as what they were talking about, what the political orthodoxy was on CNBC in 2006. Right? Before the housing bubble popped. Right? You've been hearing a lot of Manny Pacquiao bubble stuff. I was at a party. I was at this barbecue and some guy was telling me that, of course, Manny Pacquiao's a better counterpuncher than Floyd Mayweather. Folks, I thought I was in Disneyland. Right? I believe this fight is mispriced at Las Vegas casinos. I don't see why you're getting shorter odds on Manny Pacquiao by KO than you are on Floyd by KO. Let me say, Pacquiao's best chance to win this fight is a quick start where he knocks Floyd down a few times. No question about it. But that doesn't mean that that's the most likely scenario. If anyone gets knocked down, I'm expecting it to be Manny Pacquiao. Not the best defensive fighter of this generation. Not the man who owns the CompuBox numbers. Right? So, proceed with caution if you're a Manny Pacquiao fan, or if you're buying into all this hype. Right? Ask yourself, if Pacquiao's such a big puncher, why is his last KO a 2009 KO? Right? Just ask yourself, if Floyd Mayweather has just gone 24 rounds against Marcus Maidana, who was weighing in the 150s and 160s, big puncher, right? Why do you believe that Floyd's going to hit the canvas against Manny Pacquiao? Right? Re-examine things. Brandon Rios going the distance against Manny Pacquiao. Was Rios ever in danger of hitting the canvas in that fight? If the answer is no, why do you believe Floyd Mayweather is going to be in danger? A guy with much more experience at 147 than Brandon Rios. Right? Also, Chris Algieri. Right? Algieri weighed 143.5 for his fight against Manny Pacquiao. Can you trust the results when that fight wasn't even at the same weight class as this current fight? 3.5 pounds. That's half a weight division down. Pacquiao fights Algieri at the halfway point between junior welter and welter. This fight's not at any halfway point. This fight's at 147. Right? When's the last time Pacquiao knocked out a guy at 147? Even the Miguel Cotto fight, food for thought, was at a catch weight of 145. Right? Would it surprise you to learn that Manny Pacquiao has never knocked out a guy at 147 pounds? Question everything. That's how I see it. Let me hear from you. Leave your comments for me here online. Visit us at gamblersadvisory.com. This is now my longest video ever. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks for stopping by.